In the early 2000s, a charismatic tech entrepreneur burst onto the scene. Young, magnetic, and full of big promises, he quickly became the darling of Silicon Valley. Investors lined up, the media worshipped him. He was hailed as a visionary, a genius, the next great mind of the digital age. But behind the glowing headlines and sleek branding was something much darker. This wasn't just a story of ambition gone too far. This was the rise of a man who didn't care about ethics, loyalty, or consequences. A man who built his empire on charm, deceit, and manipulation. His company was fake. His product didn't work. And yet, he convinced the world it was revolutionary. This is the story of a dark triad personality. A master manipulator who smiled while stealing millions, who betrayed partners without blinking, and who watched lives crumble around him without flinching. How? Because he didn't feel what most people feel. He wasn't just a liar. He was a narcissist, a schemer, and a predator. A dangerous mix of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. What psychologists call the dark triad. And here's the chilling part. He's not alone. Studies reveal that dark triad traits are disturbingly common among the most successful and influential CEOs, politicians, industry leaders, even spiritual gurus. Why? Because these traits, while toxic in daily life, can be incredibly effective in climbing the ladder of power. Narcissists crave attention. Machiavellians manipulate the system. Psychopaths don't care who gets hurt. Together, they create individuals who are calculated, fearless, and ruthless. You've probably met someone like this. Maybe it was the manager who took credit for your work and made you doubt your worth. Maybe it was the partner who gaslighted you, made you question your sanity, then blamed you for everything wrong. Maybe it was the friend who always needed something from you, but disappeared the moment you needed them. These people don't care. They calculate outers. Every move is strategic. Every compliment is bait. Every moment of kindness is just another mask. The scariest thing, they're often the most charming people in the room. They know how to win your trust. They know how to mimic emotions. They know how to say exactly what you need to hear. And by the time you realize what's really happening, they're already 10 steps ahead. This is not fiction. This is not an exaggeration. This is reality. And if you don't know the signs, you could fall right into their trap. The truth is, the most dangerous people in the world don't walk around looking dangerous. They look successful, confident, attractive. They give TED Talks. They win awards. They run companies and make the headlines. But underneath the surface, they see people as tools, emotions as weaknesses, morality as an illusion. This is the dark triad. And it's not just a personality disorder. It's a strategy for domination. So what can you do? First, stop assuming that everyone has a conscience. They don't. Second, protect your energy. Just because someone smiles doesn't mean they're safe. Just because someone praises you doesn't mean they mean it. Trust actions, not words. Third, set boundaries and enforce them. Dark triad personalities push limits. The only way to protect yourself is to show them that yours are unmovable. And finally, never forget, knowledge is your defense. Awareness is your weapon. Because the game is being played, whether you realize it or not. You can be a pawn, or you can learn to see the board. If this opened your eyes, don't stop here. There's more to learn about power, psychology, and protecting your mind in a world full of manipulators. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and never stop sharpening your awareness. Because in a world of predators, being kind isn't enough. You need to be wise. You might think you're playing fair. You might believe that good intentions and honesty will eventually win. But in the world the dark triad plays in, those values are just openings, cracks they can slide into, exploit, and widen until everything falls apart. So, how do they do it? First, they mirror you. Dark triad personalities are experts at pretending to be exactly who you want them to be. At first, they'll seem kind, attentive, charismatic, even vulnerable. They'll ask questions. They'll remember details. They'll make you feel seen. But it's not real. It's a setup. They're gathering data, learning your emotional triggers, figuring out how to use you. Then comes the manipulation. They'll twist your words. They'll blur reality. If you question them, they'll gaslight you, make you doubt yourself, your memory, your instincts, and just when you start to pull away, they'll flip the script. Suddenly, they're the victim, you're the villain. And now you're apologizing to the person who's been manipulating you all along. And if that doesn't work, they'll discard you. Coldly. Instantly. Like you never mattered. This is not rare. It's happening everywhere. In offices, in politics, in relationships, in families. People with dark triad traits don't wear masks. They are the mask, and that's what makes them so dangerous. They thrive in chaos. They manipulate with precision, and they leave devastation behind them without blinking. So what can you do? First, recognize the signs. If someone's charm feels too perfect, if their empathy feels rehearsed, if they always shift blame but never take responsibility, pay attention. You're not being paranoid. You're being aware. Second, set boundaries. And don't just speak them, enforce them. These personalities test limits constantly. The moment you hesitate, they push further. You must be firm, consistent, and unafraid to walk away. Third, stop assuming everyone operates from the same emotional framework as you. They don't. Some people truly don't feel guilt. Some people only see others as stepping stones. That doesn't make you cold for protecting yourself. It makes you wise. Here's the truth. Most people don't want to admit. Kindness without awareness is vulnerability. Compassion without boundaries is self-destruction. And morality without strategy is a losing game. When you're up against people who don't care about rules, this doesn't mean you should become like them. It means you must understand them. Because the best defense is knowledge. If you know how the game is played, you won't get played. And here's something powerful to remember. You can be both kind and strong, compassionate and clear, empathetic and unbreakable. You don't need to sacrifice your humanity, but you do need to sharpen your awareness. Because once you see the patterns, once you learn how the dark triad operates, you can never unsee it. And that's a good thing. It means you'll stop giving your energy to people who only drain it. It means you'll stop making excuses for manipulators. It means you'll finally understand that being a good person doesn't mean being an easy target. If this message resonates, don't let it stop here. Start noticing the signs around you. Audit the people in your life. Ask yourself who builds me up, and who drains me dry, who respects my boundaries, and who only tests them. And most importantly, learn to protect your power. Because in a world where manipulation hides behind smiles, your awareness is your armor. Subscribe for more insights on psychology, power, and human nature. Turn on notifications. And never forget, there's nothing more dangerous than someone who stays kind, but refuses to be fooled. They fed on the attention, the admiration, the validation you once gave so freely. Because narcissists don't just want control, they need it. And the second you take that control back, they wither. Think about it. Without an audience, the performer is just a person in costume. Without applause, the ego shrinks. Narcissists construct their identity through others. They mirror, manipulate, and mold themselves into whatever earns them power. But behind the mask, there's nothing but insecurity wearing a crown. That's why they can't stand silence. That's why they lash out when ignored. Attention is oxygen. Indifference is kryptonite. So how do you protect yourself? First, trust your instincts. If someone makes you feel confused more than they make you feel safe, run. If someone praises you excessively, only to subtly tear you down the next day, run. These aren't random behaviors, they're calculated steps in a pattern of control. Second, define your own worth. The narcissist's game only works if you let them set the rules. They thrive when your identity depends on their approval. But the moment you become self-validating, you become immune. Third, guard your energy. These personalities are emotional vampires. Every conversation turns into a performance. Every compliment comes with strings. Don't engage. Don't explain. Don't try to change them. Just disengage and stay gone. And here's the part most people overlook. Narcissists aren't always loud. Sometimes they're soft-spoken, humble-seeming, even self-deprecating. That's what makes them harder to spot. Because narcissism isn't about volume, it's about intent. If someone constantly centers themselves, even in your moments of pain, that's a red flag. If your success makes them distant, or your sadness makes them impatient, you're not dealing with a partner, you're dealing with a parasite. Look at your life. Is there someone who drains you but never fills you? Who demands loyalty but offers none? Who rewrites every story to cast themselves as the victim or the hero? If so, you're not crazy. You're not overly sensitive. You're waking up. And waking up is painful. You'll grieve the person you thought they were. You'll grieve the version of yourself who trusted them. But on the other side of that grief is something powerful. Clarity. Because when you finally see the pattern, you stop dancing to their tune. You stop feeding their ego. You stop sacrificing your peace for their approval. And that's when the healing begins. Narcissists don't change, but you can. You can learn to spot the signs. You can strengthen your boundaries. You can rebuild your sense of self, brick by brick, until their shadow no longer reaches you. And you can do something even more powerful. You can stop the cycle, because narcissists don't just create victims. They create future narcissists. Children raised to earn love, not receive it. Partners taught that pain is part of affection. Friends who normalize being used. But when you choose to break free, you break more than your own chains. You break a legacy of control. So the next time someone walks into your life with too much charm and too little consistency, ask yourself, are they lighting up the room or just setting it on fire? Because real power doesn't manipulate. Real love doesn't confuse, and real strength doesn't need to be worshipped. It simply stands, quiet, certain, whole. Choose that. Every time. The enemy's resistance without fighting. And that is exactly how you dismantle a Machiavellian, by refusing to engage on their terms. You don't need to confront them with rage. You don't need to unmask them in public. All you need is awareness. Quiet, steady, deliberate awareness. Because once you see the strings, the puppet show isn't impressive anymore. The Machiavellian thrives on control, but it's control rooted in illusion. They present choices that aren't real, problems that don't exist, enemies that are just shadows. And while everyone else scrambles to pick sides, they sit above it all, pulling strings, shaping outcomes, counting profits. But here's the truth. They never want you to learn. You can step off the board. You don't have to be a pawn. You don't have to be a knight. You don't have to play the game at all. Recognize the patterns. The too perfect apology. The fake crisis that justifies a power grab. The charm laced with subtle threats. These are the tools of someone who sees empathy as a liability and vulnerability as leverage. Protect yourself by building emotional literacy. Ask, does this person care how I feel, or just how I respond? Are they solving real problems, or inventing them? Do they ever admit fault without spinning it into a story of martyrdom? Machiavellians aren't always in suits or politics. They're friends who only check in when they need something. Bosses who pit co-workers against each other. Activists who care more about optics than impact. What unites them is their commitment to outcome over integrity. Every word, every smile, every gesture, it's all a move in a larger scheme. They are not always loud. In fact, the most dangerous ones are often quiet, observant, calculating. They wait. They listen. And when they strike, it's not personal. It's precise. But here's their fatal flaw. Their power only works on people who haven't learned how to slow down. They rely on urgency, on fear, on outrage. They want you reactive, because a reactive person is easy to steer. So take back your breath. Respond, don't react. Question before you believe. Step back before you step in. And understand this, the Machiavellian mindset is seductive because it works in the short term. But long term, it corrodes everything it touches. Trust, loyalty, meaning these things die slowly in the presence of constant manipulation, and eventually, so does the Machiavellian's influence. Because no matter how many pawns you sacrifice, no matter how many kingdoms you build, you cannot fake connection forever. People wake up. Systems shift, and when the illusion cracks, the fall is sudden and lonely. So choose a different kind of power, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that endures. Not control but clarity. Not manipulation, but mastery of yourself, because in a world filled with hidden agendas, the clearest mind wins. And remember, the greatest threat to a Machiavellian is not a rival strategist. It's a person who sees the game, and simply refuses to play. the enemy's resistance without fighting. The antidote to Machiavellianism isn't naivety, it's pattern recognition. When someone always casts themselves as the hero, pay attention to who they paint as the villain. When you're pressured with an urgent either-or choice, search for the hidden third option they don't want you to see. True power doesn't come from mastering their game, it comes from rewriting the rules entirely. The very first rule to break is that you have to play at all. Beneath the glossy veneer of corporate offices and political arenas walks a predator far more dangerous than any fictional villain. The psychopath, not the Hollywood killer with a mask, but the functional psychopath in a crisp suit, wielding spreadsheets instead of weapons. Psychology reveals a terrifying truth about these individuals: an absolute absence of empathy, hardwired into their brains by diminished activity in the amygdala and irregularities in the prefrontal cortex. History's most notorious psychopaths prove just how chilling this biological edge can be. Robert McNamara, mastermind behind Vietnam War strategies, coldly accepted millions of civilian deaths as mere statistics. Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos fame mimicked human emotion like a flawless machine, fooling investors and employees alike with synthetic sincerity. These weren't crazed lunatics. They were human sharks, biologically incapable of feeling the emotional turmoil that restrains most people. The corporate world actively selects for these traits. Groundbreaking study published in the Journal of Business Ethics found that 21% of top executives meet the clinical criteria for psychopathy compared to just 1% in the general population. These are the CEOs who orchestrate mass layoffs right before holiday bonuses, the hedge fund managers who collapse companies for quick profits, the entrepreneurs who see employees as disposable resources. Their power lies in a biological advantage. While regular brains flood with stress hormones at ethical crossroads, the psychopath's brain stays unnervingly calm. Political psychopaths operate on even grander scales. Stalin didn't just eliminate enemies, he engineered famines that claimed millions of lives, all while maintaining meticulous kill lists written in perfect handwriting. Modern-day counterparts deploy harsh immigration policies designed to inflict suffering or craft economic plans that enrich donors while devastating entire communities. Psychopaths grasp what psychologists call the banality of evil, the fact that the most devastating crimes are committed through paperwork, not passion. Neuroscience shows us why they're so effective. Normal brains contain mirror neurons that simulate others' pain, triggering empathy and discomfort. Psychopaths, however, lack this wiring. Harvard studies reveal that while most people's insular cortex activates in response to others' suffering, psychopaths' brains show no reaction. This isn't mere indifference, it's a superpower in systems that reward ruthless efficiency. But here's the irony: the psychopath's greatest strength is also their ultimate weakness. Unlike narcissists who crave admiration or Machiavellians who adapt to new strategies, the psychopath is forever trapped inside their emotional void. They can't evolve emotionally or learn from the human connections they lack. That's why even the most powerful psychopathic empires eventually collapse. Think of Enron's spectacular downfall, or political dynasties that crumble beneath their own corruption. The strongest weapon against psychopathic control is recognizing that their cold-hearted strength is actually a profound limitation. What they see as weakness, your empathy, your guilt, your moral outrage, is exactly what they lack, and it's what protects you. Empathy connects us, fuels cooperation, and builds trust, the foundations of any lasting society or relationship. Psychopaths may dominate in the short term, but they can't sustain what they don't understand. So the next time you face someone who seems unfazed by pain or consequence, remember their calm is a mask for a broken system within. Your humanity is your shield. Your compassion is your weapon. The true power lies not in emotional numbness, but in feeling deeply and acting wisely. Because when you embrace your full emotional range, you become untouchable to the cold calculations of the psychopath. And that is the greatest threat to their reign. They have nothing left. No audience, no applause, no control. Psychopaths, narcissists, Machiavellians, they rise because the system is tilted in their favor. But systems aren't permanent. They're constructs held together by belief and habit. And when belief cracks, habit breaks. Humanity's greatest advantage isn't ruthlessness, it's resilience, connection, the ability to build something not out of fear or dominance, but out of trust. That's what the dark triad can never replicate. They imitate it. Yes, mirror empathy, rehearse, charm, calculate every interaction like a transaction. But it's always hollow, a facade built on borrowed emotions. As philosopher Hannah Arendt warned, true evil is rootless. It floats from host to host, idea to idea, always detached, always empty. The psychopath's tragedy isn't that they'll be punished. It's that even when they win, it means nothing to them. No joy, no meaning. Just another conquest in a game where the prize is emptier than the players. And that is the most devastating irony. Their dominance is proof not of strength, but of system failure. A broken game where manipulation is mistaken for leadership, cruelty for competence, and charm for character. Our institutions are rigged for these traits, not by accident, but by evolution. The modern world doesn't reward virtue, it rewards visibility, certainty, and control. That's why narcissists rise. They radiate confidence, even when it's a mask. Machiavellians thrive. They adapt, strategize, and exploit emotional blind spots. Psychopaths endure. They operate without guilt, immune to the emotional turbulence that paralyzes most people. It works. That's the terrifying part. But it only works until people see the pattern, look closely, and the cracks are everywhere. The polished CEO making record profits, while their employees skip lunch to pay rent. The politician invoking morality, while taking donations from industries they publicly condemn. The influencer raising awareness, while selling acai venti face cream. It's not hypocrisy. It's strategy, and it's been working until now. Because now, more people are waking up. They're noticing that kindness is called weakness, that ethical behavior is often penalized, that those who speak up are silenced not because they're wrong, but because they're inconvenient, and still they speak. History doesn't turn on the actions of the powerful. It turns when the powerless stop playing by the script. The antidote isn't revenge or outrage, it's awareness. Quiet, stubborn, defiant awareness. When you start seeing the manipulation, you become immune to it. When you value your inner peace more than their approval, they lose leverage. When you step away from the game, not in retreat, but in refusal, the illusion crumbles. Empathy is not a flaw. It's a compass. Conscience is not weakness. It's the foundation of everything that lasts. These traits may not make you rich or famous, but they make you free, and that freedom is what the dark triad fears most. Because their entire empire depends on your belief that you need them, that you're powerless without them, that their game is the only one worth playing. But it's not. The moment you choose connection over manipulation, depth over performance, presence over control, you win. Not in the way they define victory, but in the way that actually matters. Because power built on fear will always collapse. But power built on truth, that doesn't just endure, it multiplies. Validation. That's their fuel, your need for approval, your hunger for recognition. Remove that, and they're left performing for an empty room. Jiddu Krishnamurti wasn't being poetic. He was diagnosing a crisis. Adapting to dysfunction isn't strength, it's surrender. When you find yourself thriving in a sick system, it's time to ask what part of yourself you had to silence to survive. The antidote isn't rebellion, it's reinvention. Marcus Aurelius ruled the largest empire on earth, but understood that the real battlefield was within. He wrote his meditations not for history, but for survival. Every day he asked, "Am I in control of myself?" That question is more urgent today than ever, because in a world built on manipulation, your best defense is to stop being predictable. Science backs what the Stoics practiced. Your brain detects lies before your mind admits it. The anterior cingulate cortex lights up like a siren when someone's smile doesn't match their eyes. But we override it. We rationalize. We give benefit of the doubt. We confuse politeness with wisdom. That's how dark triad personalities get in. Spot them faster with 3 recognition tactics. 1. The overconnector. Narcissists compliment with sniper precision. They don't just say nice shirt, they say that shade of blue really brings out your eyes. On the second meeting, that's not connection, it's control through flattery. 2. The subtle hook. Machiavellians don't demand, they offer. First, they help you out. Small things. Just enough to make you feel grateful. Then the favors turn into expectations. Suddenly, you owe them. But did you ever agree to that? 3. The hollow laugh. Psychopaths leak through humor, jokes about violence, casual cruelty masked as sarcasm, a fascination with watching people squirm. They test reactions like a scientist running an experiment. Once you've identified them, it's time to activate the immunity framework. Step 1. Remove the dopamine. Narcissists feed on admiration. Starve them with neutral curiosity. Say, interesting, not, that's amazing, not, wow, just, interesting. Your disengagement is their kryptonite. Step 2. Mirror the manipulator. When a Machiavellian rushes you, slow down. I don't make fast decisions. Watch their frustration surface. They want easy prey, not reflective minds. Step 3. Consequence-based boundaries. Psychopaths aren't moved by feelings, but they respect structure. Say what you'll do, then do it. If this happens again, we'll reschedule for next month. No drama, just clarity. Here's the twist. Empaths aren't weak. The real risk factor isn't feeling too much. It's saying too little. Harvard's defense study showed that highly empathetic people who set clear boundaries were the most resistant to manipulation. The real vulnerability is passivity. That's why your self-checks matter. Every week, ask, am I still choosing my values, or am I reacting to pressure? Get outside feedback. Triangulate your reality. Don't rely on one person's version of the truth. And when it comes to trust, upgrade the question. Don't ask, do I trust them? Ask, what's the price of being wrong about them? Trust isn't free. It's a calculated risk, and not everyone deserves the benefit. Sometimes, the wisest move is strategic silence, not ghosting, not revenge. Just a full withdrawal of attention. It's not surrender, it's sovereignty. Across time and tradition, the conclusion remains the same. Suffering comes from clinging, whether it's to ideas, people, or illusions of control. When you no longer need approval, you become untouchable. The dark triad only thrives where your ego is still invested. Detach, not from others, but from their power over you. Because, in a sick society, wholeness isn't rebellion, it's revolution. Validation loses its grip when you define success on your own terms. You create connection that isn't based on performance, praise, or fear but on truth. And neuroscience backs this up. When your self-concept becomes secure, manipulation doesn't land. The brain stops releasing cortisol, stops craving approval. You become unreactive. You become unhackable. As Jordan Peterson once said, the price of being naive is suffering, but the cost of awareness is responsibility. You now know too much to pretend. The question is, will you keep reacting to their rules, or will you start designing your own? In a world crawling with psychological predators, your greatest weapon isn't revenge, it's resilience. Not reacting isn't weakness, it's strategy. Your mind is a fortress. The locks are internal. No one gets control unless you hand them the keys. Plato's allegory of the cave warned us. Most people are content watching shadows on the wall, believing that's reality. But you've turned around. You saw the fire casting those shadows. You know now that most of what we call success, influence, and status is manufactured, designed to reward the people who know how to play dirty. And here's the gut punch. Dark triad personalities didn't just infiltrate the system, they shaped it. Corporate hierarchies, political machines, social platforms. They weren't corrupted by narcissists and psychopaths. They were optimized by them. A Harvard study found dark triad traits boost your odds of reaching the C-suite by up to 400%. That's not evolution, that's engineering. And it's working exactly as intended. But here's what they don't want you to understand. It's all an illusion. Power built on manipulation is fragile. It only works if you believe it. If you play along. That's why stories like Cassandra from Greek mythology matter. She saw the truth. She warned others. No one listened, but she wasn't wrong. And neither are you. Maybe you've noticed it too. The manager who praises in public, but undermines in private. The friend who keeps track of every favor. The influencer, whose entire brand is a mirror, reflecting your insecurities. They count on you not seeing the pattern, because once you do, the spell breaks. Science shows naming a manipulation tactic weakens its hold on your brain by 62%. That's not folklore, that's MRI data. Awareness is neurological liberation. We've traced the lineage. From Renaissance courts to corporate cubicles, the tactics remain the same. Lies cloaked in charm. Guilt wrapped as generosity. Control dressed as charisma. But today you have something they didn't expect. The language, the research, the blueprint to fight back. And now, I'll leave you with a question. The same one Stoics asked themselves each night. Who owned the version of me that walked through the world today? Was it the narcissist who drained my energy by demanding applause? The Machiavellian who nudged my choices like chess pieces? The psychopath who expected silence because I feared their power? Or was it me? Because here's the truth. Dark Triad personalities don't control systems by force. They control them through belief. And belief is yours to revoke. You don't need to outplay them. You need to outgrow them. Their world collapses the moment you stop feeding it. Stop justifying, explaining, appeasing. Withdraw your belief, and their empires dissolve like fog in morning light. In a society designed by shadows, don't beg for sunlight. Be the fire that casts your own.